Thank you so much, Teresa, for popping in again.
Oh, thank you, Chongsun, for inviting me.
Yeah. So just so so people are aware of our last conversation, we ended the conversation around energy blocks in a sense, right?
Mhm.
And for
Yep.
me personally, it was the whole like um, I felt like I was about to go through like a purging process of some sort. And then we then talked about how it could have been that like my my physical body can't handle my spiritual body at that very moment, right? And therefore I'm having some physical reactions to that, right? And then of course we then dug deep a little bit deeper into that, and you briefly mentioned the whole idea of um, and please rephrase this after. But the way I kind of perceived it is you told me that part of it is like, I'm not like I'm not allowing my emotions to fully, or I'm not fully feeling my emotions, right? And then unfortunately, we have to cut ourselves off at that point. But for the list or the watchers or listeners or what have you, we did have a conversation for a good like 15, 30 minutes after, and um, and for me personally, uh, after having that conversations, like I felt like a few different things just got lifted off my shoulders per se, like different energy blocks, different weights, like whatever analogy you want to use. And I was able to have a few tough conversations um, with ease, really. And yeah, and I mean that's a super fascinating thing for me, to experience. Teresa, would you like to kind of help elaborate on what exactly, So this is my view of what happened. On your end, like what was the process that I went through, or what was the process that I went through, and what did you help me with?
So very often, when I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to approach it from a very psychological perspective. And psychologically, we put energy blocks there ourselves. Okay, so what we did really in your case, right, is to really, for me, very often, is to find out where is a person's trigger. So naturally, in your conversation with me, you were very triggered in the business situation, in the business environment, right? So why was there a trigger there? So when there is a trigger, it means that there's certain things that was very uncomfortable, or there's certain level discomfort that is caused by a few reasons. Whatever conversation we want to have about like the discomfort of frustration, the discomfort of resentment, the frustration of like of angry with that person, this level of trigger is a very complex conversation, right? It's like, oh, I'm so frustrated with this person. It's very confusing. This person is saying something I don't understand, or I don't understand what's so. We try to complicate things because at this level, when you say you're frustrated, you're angry, you're resentful, it's all very complex emotions. But the basic fundamental conversation that you really need to have is, were you hurt or were you in fear? And as humans, we tend to want to confuse things to mask our vulnerability, because to say that we are in fear, it makes us very vulnerable. It's a very animal instinct that we don't want people to know that we are fearful, right? This is where people will pounce on you. Or we don't want to admit that we've been hurt. And that's, again, another very instinctive animal behavior. We don't want people to know that we've been hurt. So then we lie to ourselves that, we come up with a mask of like, I'm strong, so I'm angry, I want to fight back, or I'm frustrated, again, to demonstrate that you're very strong towards this, you know how to handle it, right? But the real basic conversation really is the way you hurt, or were you scared or fearful, right? So the type of blocks that we put there is where we don't allow ourselves to enter the realm of admitting that we were fearful or we were hurt. It's very simple. So nearly everybody find it very difficult to actually admit that there's certain parts of them that they're afraid of, or that they were being hurt. So whatever I did for you or did with you was to really address that. Now the difficulty of of getting to that real basic area of what are you afraid of, what you were hurt by. And that's the unraveling part, because we get so confused with our own emotions, right? I'm so frustrated. Oh, I'm so angry, right? And then there's a million and one reason of why you're frustrated and angry. And that is actually blocking you from really going down to the very essence of like, what exactly are you afraid of? What exactly were you hurt by? And that's a lot of the work that I do, is to really help people just untangle that. It's very difficult to untangle that, because we rather not go there, because it's just too scary for one person to admit that I actually do have fears, and I am hurt. I am, after all, not a superhuman being. Does that help?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess as you're explaining it that way, then to me it sounded like you're almost playing the role of a counselor or a psychiatrist. Um, would you say that's a fair statement? That, or was there anything energetically that you were like helping me navigate, even though I might not have been aware of it?
Yeah, so the interesting thing that you brought up about being a counselor or being a psychiatrist, right? You may be right in that area, but I do find that because counselors and psychiatrists, they go by the book,
Mm-hmm.
and that there is a tried and tested methodology that may work for 90% of the people. And so they will use that again and again, right? And if they will just keep using the same methodology. Personally have studied psychology myself, and I also been trained as a hypnotherapist, right? But because energetically, I read a person differently. And when I read a person differently, I see their aura, I see their reaction based on their energy, things that maybe a very instinctive psychologist or a very instinctive counselor, if they're able to check in on the micro movements around the face or around the body, they may use that as a dashboard to decide on which path or which question to ask. I tap into the other side of it, where there is the energetic being, because everybody is an energetic being. So I tap into that to really see how the aura is changing, what color is it, to be able to guide me to say what is the next question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, I'm not too sure whether you want me to launch into this so soon, but I do sometimes get prompted some questions from their own guides and their own higher self, who will prompt me to ask a very random question where I wouldn't even be aware to even ask that question. I mean, 2 days ago, for example, there's one guy who came to me for many other challenges. And one of the questions that the guides want me to ask, which I never thought of asking, is that, have you worked out your sexuality yet? And I'm like, there's no counselor or psychology who is going to be trained to know to just suddenly bombard a client with this question, right? And I just heard the question, and I'm like, okay, let's just ask it. Just trust what they want me to ask. And that was the key question that I needed to ask. Despite all the complexity of what's not working for him at work, what's not working out for him in terms of abundance and all that, right? The true essence of what he needed to sort out was actually who he is in terms of his sexuality. But as human, we just mask it with so many other complex reasons. So yeah, so that there is that level of deeper work that I do, which is really looking at people from an energetic perspective, and also sometimes listen to the guides to guide me to ask the next question.
Yeah, I mean, since we opened this, and this is totally not part of what we initially wanted or planned to talk about. Not to worry. Why don't we dig deeper into this whole idea of like a guide or a higher self, right? Um, so I guess starting from my own experience and my own thoughts about this, I never really thought about having a guide or a higher self um, prior to having my first psychedelic experience, right? Um, and the first psychedelic experience was with magic mushrooms, so psilocybin. And at that moment, and I guess even then, like it didn't feel like I was being like I was having a someone else talking to me, it felt like I was somehow able to turn off my conscious mind and have a conversation with my unconscious mind. Is that okay? So that's my first experience, right? And the second experience was through ayahuasca, and that was when, for some reason, after that whole experience, I realized that like, hey, there is this like higher being, or this my higher self that is trying to talk to me on a more regular basis, but because I didn't know how to, I guess, understand it in the past, I kind of just wrote it off as like a random thought, right? Whereas now I feel like there are definitely a lot more moments where I, similar to what you were saying, about like, hey, ask about this or that. There are times where I'm just like, I don't know where this is, like why I'm agreeing to this, or why I'm going here, or why I'm telling this person whatever it is. But I feel like I feel like I need to be saying this, right? And in a sense, like I've accepted that part, and it has worked out for me. So I guess kind of reeling it all back here, what exactly is this, like the idea of like a higher self, or like a guide? What is their role and their purpose, and how do we as individuals actually have a chance to interact with them, or to have a better relationship with them?
It's a really interesting question that you asked, because in so many clients of mine, there's so many different beings that come through to the room. And sometimes their higher self themselves come through, and the higher self itself is in pain. And I actually have to heal their higher self or their souls. So who exactly are we on Earth first? That's why these beings feel that they need to step in to support us and to help us, right? Is the question. So Earth is really classroom. We're here at classroom to really see the magnificence of ourselves. But you can't see the magnificence of yourself until you realize, firstly, you can't remember your own magnificence. Like, you can't be 10 feet tall or wish to be 10 feet tall if you are already 10 feet tall. You know what I'm saying? You have to be like maybe 1 feet, and then, then you grow into how to get into a certain area. How are you going to grow into that? Let's just say I want to be rich, but you won't know that you are rich until you have been poor before, right? How do you know that you are capable of solving problems until you have problems to solve? So I actually do have some clients that's really interesting. They say that their true being and their true essence is to solve problems for the world. I was like, good, I'm really glad you feel a lot of sense of empowerment in solving problems. But do you realize that if your true essence is to love solving problems, then don't come asking, why is there so many problems in your life? Right? So being on Earth is a classroom to really know what are we capable of, what are we good at, and to experience the true magnificence of what God has put in us, or what essence of God are we amplifying or magnifying. So we come to Earth with that agreement that we are going to want to experience certain things. Let's just say some people come to say, I want to experience how to be a genuine, good provider. So that's part of our soul group, that we can be a provider as a soul group. What do you want to provide? You want to provide comfort, provide food, provide wisdom, whatever. You're a provider, right? Or some people are here to be a seeker who wants to solve and learn from the world mystery. So they come here to want to fulfill that role, right? So we all come to Earth with an agreement. What are we going to do and what are we going to play on Earth? And each and every one of us are here to play our part so that the whole system will function the way we're supposed to function. So just imagine if somebody agreed to be the scientist to solve COVID, and then somehow the mother aborted the baby. So then who is going to solve COVID? maybe not so soon, until somebody step in to intervene and say, I'm going to pass this formula to somebody to solve COVID, because the original soul that was supposed to solve COVID has been aborted by the mother. So it's just to give you the perspective of how each and every one of us have come in with a certain role to play. But because Earth is so dense, and it's dense on the purpose, so that we will forget our magnificence, so that we can revisit and be reminded of our magnificence, that sometimes we get so lost. And we get so lost of what we need to do that our guides are there to guide us back onto our journey and back to our path. Like just before we step on this call, I was working with a girl where an energy from the 12th dimension came in to support her, to remind her of her own magnificence. Right? And so these beings come in to remind us of what we have agreed to do and to learn and to contribute and to leave a legacy in this journey in life. And we experience Earth or many other planets several times, numerous times, right? And so these guides are here to ensure we fulfill what we agreed to do and wanted to do, and they are here as teachers and guides, because everybody else on Earth are really just going through the same level of density and forgetfulness, and that we forget that we are truly gods, or the God's energy is actually in us. We actually do have God's wisdom. We do have God's understanding and perspective of things, but we forgot. So they are just back here to remind us of that.
Wow, there's definitely a lot to unpack there. But I think for me personally, what I want to dig deeper into is the idea that everyone came here with a specific thing that they want to experience, right? I guess first question: do most people actually end up experiencing what they came here to experience? And I guess what I'm trying to get at now is how much of what we're doing is fate versus we once we're here, we forget we're in control, we do whatever we want. Any thoughts on that?
So a lot of people forget about what they agreed to come here to do, and then they are in so much pain, and that's why they get manifested as form of sickness, and then mental illness, and then they will then have to live a life where it drains their life energy really quickly, because they spend too much energy putting up and projecting somebody they think that the world will accept them to be, right? So what is clear here is that once you arrive here on Earth, right, where there's institution, there's systems telling us what we must do and what we have to do, we forget who we are actually born to be and just be. Right? I'm not too sure if that answers the first part of your questions, right? So do we truly come here to fulfill our journey? Not many people get a chance to do that, which is why sometimes the guides have to step in, or something, your body or your soul will speak out and then create some halt or stop in that trajectory, so that you may change your trajectory to fulfill what you are here supposed to fulfill. So to your other questions, like for example, what we are doing here, is this planned? Is this fated? Yes, because for example, my essence, what I needed to do is to be the guiding light to people. And I haven't fulfilled my job for a long time, right? I've only stepped into it because I've been too playful and having too much fun on Earth, that one of my clear thing that I needed to do was actually to be a guiding light. And who is to know that you are fulfilling the part of supporting me in saying that, okay, we need to get your work out there really quickly, so that people get awakened and they then start fulfilling what they're supposed to fulfill and do their job here and have the experience they want here, so that their soul can continue to grow and so that they could continue to have God expressed.
Okay. So I guess there are a few more things that I noticed with what you just said there, right? So first thing, you were saying that you were having too much fun on Earth, having but to really focus on what you are meant to do per se, right? Does that mean that even though, like, because I guess my initial question, or my next question, really was going to be, how do you know if you're fulfilling the role that you initially set out to fill, right? And my initial thought was like, hey, like, if you're having fun, if you're like every day you're full of energy and all that, shouldn't that technically mean that you're here doing what you want to experience? But it seems like that's not the case, right? So what are your thoughts about that, and how do you know for sure, or how are you confident that what you're doing now is what you're supposed to be doing, and how do I as like an individual start finding my own path in that capacity?
Okay, so when I say I'm having so much fun on Earth, it's because I'm having other external validation of who I think is fun for me, right? So at the time, I mean, like, obviously for somebody like me, I do have certain gifts and certain powers, in terms of like, well, I can read energy and all that. And did I use it in that way I'm supposed to? I probably didn't, because I was in corporate and I'm really ambitious. And then I had, like, I was just really working really hard to climb the corporate climb the corporate ladder, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So then I thought that was fun because I got a lot of validation, and rewards, monetarily, recognition, society plays, and all that, right? But there is always that inside knowing that these were fulfilled to me externally. So externally, I saw that as fun. Yeah, sure. I get invited to parties. I get a lot of like recognition, and in monetary, I get a lot of good rewards. But as I journey continue, and I realize that these things are very fleeting. Like if I not climbing the corporate power ladder, sorry, if I stop climbing the ladder, right? I stop getting invited to parties, right? I'm no longer influential. I'm no longer somebody important to fulfill other people's agenda. And so these are all very fleeting, right? And then that's when I have my dips and I go, oh, why suddenly I've got all this fear of missing out? Why am I not invited to this party anymore? Why am I not invited to this product launch anymore? And these are all because I've been dependent on external factors to validate who I am, to make me happy. But now that I know who I am, what's my role, it doesn't matter. I can have a quiet night at home and I'm still very still and I'm still at peace. And I know that I'm still very grateful, appreciative, and joyful. Right? And I am just happy if somebody just reach out to say, hey, how are you? I don't need to be invited to parties, product launches, because, I am just complete as I am within. Right? So to your very complicated question about like, how do you know whether like I'm truly happy or not? It's really, how do you benchmark your happiness? At that time, and I know for a lot of people, they benchmark their happiness based on what people think about them, based on what external rewards they get from monetary rewards, recognition, invitation to party, how many friends want to get drunk with you, that level of happiness to make you feel, oh, I'm included, I'm important, I'm valued by my friends. But these are all external and they're very fleeting. And one day they're here, one day they're not. What will be true is your core of where you find your own inner peace and inner happiness, such that nothing can rock that. Your friends may come and go, it doesn't matter. You truly know who you are. Your definition of who you are is not dependent on your name card, is not dependent on your monetary awards or your address of where you stay. It's just you. Yeah.
Wow.
Does that?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess right now, intellectually, that makes sense. And there are definitely moments, when you were explaining that, I guess just reflecting on my own journey so far, like, yeah, there are moments where I'm like, I think I am, I feel at peace with where I am, and then there are definitely other moments in my life where I resonated of like, you know, I was really doing that for the external validation as opposed to that internal drive for my own self. And I mean, based off this right now, like, hey, maybe I am meant to you know, support you in making in growing all of this out. So only time will tell. Okay. I think we've gotten pretty deep into the whole energy space. So I definitely I think that's a good place for us to end at that for now. Of course, you know, energy is definitely my favorite topic at this point. Oh, actually, I do have one question that I really want to ask you about energy. Not relevant to what we were talking about so far, but as a whole, okay, so I guess let's take a step back. When I define energy right now, I'm thinking about it as the amount of drive or excitement or ability to maintain a certain level of output per se, right? And and usually when in that capacity, people usually talk about like, you know, sleep is by far the most important. You have to eat healthy. You have to exercise, right? And by doing these things, like you're taking care of your body, you should naturally have more energy, and you're able to do more with that, right? I'm just curious from a, like, if we were to, well, number one is how would you define energy if that's different? And number two, going back, if we were to use my definition, is there something from a spiritual perspective that I could, you know, be more cognizant of or start trying to implement in my own daily life, such that I do feel that additional level of energy?
So it's a very good question, and I could approach it from so many different levels. But I'm just going to approach it from my most recent experience. A client came in with full of self-deprecating conversations about how she's not good enough and all that, right? And very often in the textbook scenario is to say that, oh no, you know, you are good enough. Who are you not to be not good enough, right? So these are all very textbook. But you see, my client, she was insurance sales. She was previously in the corporate world, and then she decided to step out and decided to step, you know, to sustain her lifestyle. She decided to sell insurance. And she just couldn't believe why she could not be successful there, because all her life she's been successful. And why couldn't she sell insurance nicely? And then so many successful insurance person keep saying that, oh, you have to do this, you have to understand human psychology, you have to be all that, right? So obviously, selling insurance is draining her energy because she's not successful there, right? Success actually feeds some energy there, right? So I asked her truly, I said, are you really do you think you're able to sell insurance? She said, I'm such a smart person. Who am I not be able to do anything? Right? So let alone who am I not to be able to sell insurance? And I said that if you are a fish, would you expect a fish to climb tree? Right? And she's like, you're right. Maybe I'm not designed to sell insurance then. I said, good, then can we stop with this self-deprecating conversation? Right? So then the conversation had become like, what is fulfilling and what is life-giving to her? Right? She really likes dealing with people's mental wellness. And if that is her calling, she knows that she can spend hours and hours lying in bed reading about mental wellness. Instead, she doesn't spend any time reading about financial planning, money management, or whatever, right? The moment she opens a textbook on how to sell insurance, she falls asleep. That's where her energy is being drained. But if she is reading about mental wellness, she's extremely happy and she can read all night. And she doesn't feel tired. So from that energetic perspective, I would say it is where your inner fire has been lighted up. So if you do something knowing that, my God, it's so difficult, right? Why am I pushing through? And I feel it's so life draining and I get such a headache and I can't do it. Then is when you can check in with your own energy to say whether it's in alignment of who you need to be and what your call is. So that's one approach to it. Is where you say that, oh, am I passionate about this? Right? Or is this something that is in alignment of who I need to be? Because I can tell you, when you're in alignment of who you need to be, you really find it to be life-giving, such that the person doesn't age that easily and doesn't get tired easily, because they are fulfilled. The life comes to them to do their job. They just naturally knows energetically how to draw energy to themselves to be able to serve in the alignment. But the truth is that you must know where your alignment is. If you do not know where your alignment is, then you do not know where to draw the energy to support you to do it. And when I'm talking about energy alignment, right, I'm also talking about the spiritual, mental, and soul or heart or emotion alignment. All three needs to be in alignment. Then it is absolutely life-giving. That's when every part of your body, health, mental health, and then your abundance, everything is going to be in true alignment when you are in true alignment with your soul, spirit, mental, and your emotions. It all needs to work in that manner. And spiritual calling is your guidance to what you need to do. So naturally your health will fall in place and naturally your emotion will fall in place or your mental will fall in place. Yeah. So everything's going to be in alignment. So very often people will come ask me and said, in terms of like personal growth, do you invest more in spiritual growth or do you invest more in just personal growth, right? Like health hacking and all that, right? The truth is that if your spiritual growth is not there, you're not there to tap in to your own intuition and to be there to honor your soul, everything else you do is that you're doing it blindly. And when you're doing things blindly, you do not know exactly what you're doing. So it's very important to really know spiritually what's your calling, where your soul needs you to be, where is your center of universe, so that you are centered, then everything else falls into place. Like some people like to do biohacking and health hacking and all that, right? But if they do not know what is their purpose, the reason for that, then there's no reason to have that health at all.
Okay. I mean, that's a great, I guess, a great way of thinking about it. As someone, I guess on my end though, as someone who loves to dabble in things, right? Like I get excited when I get a chance to learn and I have a vision and I like, I want to try making that happen, right? But at the same time, like once it gets to like the hard work part of, not everything is new anymore. Now it's like, it's time to like rinse and repeat and slowly refine your craft. That's when I usually just fall off, right? Does that mean I'm like in that kind of, and I know a lot of other people who are similar in that capacity, right? So does that mean that for people like us, that we're not actually paying attention to our own, what do you call it? Our
Spiritual.
like our spiritual alignment, or is that really our spiritual alignment of like, hey, you're here to just learn stuff and have fun with stuff, but you're not, the goal isn't for you to like become a master or become an expert or make money off it or what have you.
Would you say that you're seeking to find exactly what is your spiritual alignment?
Right now? Not really. I don't think I am actively seeking. I mean, prior to this conversation or prior to reconnecting with you, I don't think I was actively seeking that spiritual alignment. I think for me, I have been interested in, a specific field for a while, and this is really a mixture of like sales, marketing, and personal finance, right? like that's been kind of my sweet spot of things like I've been enjoying doing for the last few years now. But whether or not like, this is what I'm spiritually aligned to do or not, like, I don't know.
Okay, so I mean, like, I'm glad you brought that up. When I say spiritual alignment, it doesn't mean that everybody is going to be Zen and Om and meditating. That's not spiritual alignment. Spiritual alignment is more like where is your inner calling, where your inner calling is leading you to, right? For some people, it is like in your case, it could be like, how to generate massive income passively or something. That could be your mantra, right? That could be the spiritual alignment where we don't have to be working in corporates and selling our time. There may be another way of doing things, right? So that could be your own spiritual alignment. Everybody have different spiritual alignment. Some people just want to be the voice. Somebody just want to help others be the voice, right? So this spiritual alignment need not be about meditating and finding God. It is actually knowing where your inner compass is. For a lot of people, that's the conversation of their inner. I mean, like their spiritual alignment. So when I say that, are you seeking about it? I guess it's more like are you seeking for your own inner alignment, inner compass? Because for many people, trying many things, experiencing many things is definitely one way of finding out who they are. And being passionate with life will give you that opportunity to experience everything with a lot more zest, a lot more fun, a lot more energy. And then when you truly have to dig deep into it, and then you find that really that's not your calling and that's not your thing, then that's not your thing. Mm-hmm. And eventually there will be something, right? I mean, like, I do know of a lot of people who say they love to read, but they only read certain books. Like some people just love reading biography. Or like myself, I only like to read fantasy, right? So, but there are other people who only like to read romance. It's the same thing. We say we like reading books, but we only dig deep into some books. If you ask me to go read biography, I can't. I just can't bring myself to read biography or read history books, right? It's just not my thing, right? But there are others who can spend hours doing that. So it's the same thing when you're actually experiencing everything in life. There will be one where you will sink deeper into. Mm-hmm. And that's where your inner compass and your spiritual alignment calls you to. So there's nothing wrong with experiencing everything. I mean, like, until you experience everything, then you know what you don't like. Like, I know I can't read history books. Even though I'm curious about history, I just can't read it.
Okay. So you also said like that's one way of doing it, right? Like to test everything and then eventually you will find it. What is, as someone who also is like, hey, you know what? I would much rather know what it is and then spend the rest of my life, being in that moment, living and doing what I'm aligned to do. What's a different way of approaching this?
Is that fun in just giving it to you on and say that you are born into being a scientist, don't care about anything else? Isn't that the book Divergent?
I actually haven't read it, so I don't know.
Or the movie Divergent, right? Because that's where they're born and then they're classified into the area, right? And then if somebody actually combines everything, then they are outlier, right? So the thing is this, right? If you've been told that this is all you need to do for the rest of your life, then are you really experiencing life?
Good point. Good point.
Right? I mean, like, it's all about attitude towards life and experiencing it and then knowing what exactly you like or don't like. I mean, there are certain clients that I come and say, just tell me, am I going to get this job or am I going to do that? I'm not just taking the fun away from you. I won't tell you that. Right? But occasionally when different angels come in to talk to me or to my clients, we will know that each and every one of us are born into different soul groups and different soul family. And different soul groups and different soul family, there are certain purpose or missions that each and every one has been given. Yeah. And it's up to
sorry, go for it.
No, it's up to each and every one of us to go find that.
Yeah. So this is probably, I feel like every time we've talked, the words soul group and soul family have come up. I am definitely not ready to have that conversation today, so we will have to park that for some other time. All right. Okay. Next topic that I'm definitely a bit interested, or I want to learn more about. So there is first of all, like, the third eye, which is kind of your sixth chakra, if I'm counting correctly. And then there's also, or okay, sorry, let's start there. What exactly is the third eye? What is the purpose of the third eye?
It's your inner wisdom. Third eye is your inner wisdom.
Okay, and what does it mean to have a third eye open or a third eye closed, or how does one tap into the third eye?
Yeah, good question. The truth of the matter is that we all have our third eye. Whether we have it open or closed is really like a muscle, whether we have used it or not. Right? So there's, like, for example, a little pinky, we have a muscle there, right? But we don't usually use it a lot, right? So it's the same thing with our third eye. Like, how often do we trust it and how often do we use it? Right? It's just like a little pinky. It's a little necessary muscle there, but how often do we use it? How often would you use this to carry the most weight? Do you trust it to be able to do that? Right? So the inner guidance or the inner wisdom that our third eye offer us, very often it's easy for us to overshadow it with something else. Your logic, your own experience, to say that the data doesn't compute, so I'm not going to trust this instinct. So the third eye, for a lot of people, unfortunately, from a mystical perspective, right? They like to say, oh, the third eye helps you see things that the naked eye can't see. So they like to say that with the third eye, you are able to see ghosts, see aura, see many other things, right? Yeah, it's true. You can use the third eye for many different things, just like everything in our body, we can use it for different things. So the third eye actually have many different functions at various different levels of how you want to use it. So, not to confuse this conversation even too much, so I would say that when I work with my clients on opening their third eye, is to help them trust their own inner wisdom, to be able to access to what actually is reminding them of their wisdom that they have within, and also to just work with that creativity that comes with the third eye. Problem solving, using your intuition to problem solve, using your intuition to assess a situation, using your intuition to know what to do next, right? That comes with your third eye. But of course, there's others who say, open up the third eye to be able to connect spiritually to the alternate consciousness, right? And that's where it is possible too, when you actually do leverage medicines, like the plant medicines, to support you in that journey, right? And then there's also others who open up the third eye to be able to communicate with the spiritual realm. So the third eye actually serves all this purpose, and it really depends on you on how you want to use the third eye for. Personally, I don't think, like people say, oh, you can talk to the spiritual realm, it's so good and blah, blah, blah. They actually freak a lot of people out, okay? Not everybody wants to talk to something they can't see or the other people can't see, because it's so easy to say, are you crazy? Who are you talking to? This is freaking people out, right? So it is not using third eye to talk to the spiritual realm. I can also tell you that we actually don't need the third eye to talk to spiritual realm. There's many other ways of talking to the spiritual realm. And then the other way of using your third eye is to actually tap into your inner wisdom and your inner creativity and problem solving. That is what I will support the most when I actually work with my clients to open up the third eye.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's naturally ours. It's actually our own muscle that we can tap into as a reminder of our brilliance, our ability to solve problems, our ability to be creative, to be able to trust our inner wisdom. And that's what I will work with the third eye, especially for.
Yeah.
With the third eye.
Okay. And I mean, that sounds great. Having that inner wisdom. Just want to better understand. Does inner wisdom here also mean like, let's see, like hearing your own guides or your higher self, or are they? Is it different things?
Yeah, that's what I would mean too. Like your inner wisdom, where it comes from your own higher self talking to you, or it could also come from your guides talking to you, your angels talking to you. But they need not be in a form where you see them, right? It can be a soft whisper. For some of my clients, they hear it as they see it as a vision, or they hear it as a little voice. They say, "Take your umbrella with you today," or like, "Hey, go and talk to this girl. She needs your help." Or something, right? So that is the inner wisdom that is within us, responding to that little voice. Or sometimes it comes as a vision. Suddenly there'll be a vision that say, "Oh, you're going to meet somebody," and true, you walk down the street, you meet that person, and the person has got information for you, or you have information for that person. So yeah, that's how the inner wisdom works.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and how does one develop their third eye or practice using their third eye?
One, definitely, a lot of people tend to meditate. And when they meditate, they allow their voices to come forward. And there's sometimes going to be a little voice that you know for sure the voice is not your original voice, but it's a voice that came from either a higher self because it sounded a lot wiser. It offered you an alternative, a different perspective that you may not have ever considered before. Right? So then that's when they meditate and look out for that voice or listen to it. Then we go, "Oh, okay." So when you're used to listen to it, you will always look out for it, hear it, and then it becomes a habit of actually responding and allowing it to take over you in terms of saying that, "Okay, I trust this voice a lot more now," rather than having it overshadowed by your own logic or your own fears of not wanting to listen to this other option, right? The other thing which I touch on slightly is actually using plant medicine. A lot of these plant medicine has been used by different tribes and ancient history civilizations. They tend to use it too, right? So we're talking about the plants, like you mentioned, shrooms, psychedelics. For other people, even like medicinal marijuana, cannabis, and then ayahuasca has a journey, the combos, pedros for the plants, right? And then for me, this time I'm actually using something a lot more gentle, and it's actually the blue lotus flower. So these assisted plant medicine that help us to allow the third eye to open up a bit more.
Mm-hmm. So I think number one, like a lot of these plant medicines are a lot harder to source in this part of the world, right? But I think the blue lotus flower is something that's definitely a lot easier to kind of find, right? So can you walk us through like how exactly or why the blue lotus flower, and how one can actually use it themselves to potentially help them find that inner wisdom?
So blue lotus flower actually have a property that relaxes our mind. So very often our mind is functioning at very high beta, right? We are always looking out. We are always concerned and aware, like if something's going to happen, right? Because this is our natural survival instinct. When we take the blue lotus flower, it has a natural ability to relax our mind so that we go into a state of relaxation and trust, and so that our beta do not need to be functioning at such a high level. I don't want to say it's called the beta inhibitor because that sounds like a, tranquilizer medicine that the doctors will give us and doesn't serve the same purpose, right? So it is to calm us down a little bit more, that our body is a bit more trusting, and then allow us to tap into the different brain vibration or brain frequencies. As you know, that the brain frequencies, there's 40 different wavelengths, but we often talk about the alpha, beta, delta, and the gamma and theta wavelength, right? And very often when we are talking about tapping into the inner wisdom, we're tapping into the theta or the gamma wavelength. The creative side, we use the alpha wavelength, right? And using these different flowers' essence actually allow these different frequencies of our brain to come a lot more stronger, so that we can then tap into the energy of opening up our third eye a lot easier.
Okay.
Which is, again, same thing. When we meditate, allows us to get into these states as well.
Okay. Let's take a step back here. So number one, when you were saying beta, we're talking about the beta waves, right? Or beta frequencies, and that would be like the day-to-day, your day-to-day brain, right? Like very active, constantly thinking about what's next. I would say very like egocentric per se. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. I didn't know beta is egocentric, but yeah, maybe, because it's always on the lookout just in case you get hurt or something happens to you negatively. So yeah, maybe you're right. It could be ego, but I just see it as like, something they're always looking out for danger.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I kind of put that out myself. Didn't actually do that research to say, is it egocentric or not? You also mentioned there are definitely a few different brain frequencies, right? So you said alpha is actually more of a creator style, right? Like you want to kind of be an alpha when you're looking to do something more creative, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then in order to tap into the inner wisdom side of things, you mentioned there were two frequencies that you're trying to get to. What were those two?
Theta.
Yeah.
Oh,
Gamma. Okay. And the idea here is that the blue lotus flower can help you get your brain into this theta gamma wavelength frequency. Yeah. How does that work? Are you brewing this to become some sort of tea to then drink? Are you just like eating it like whole, or are you drying it and then doing something else with it, or like lighting it like as incense or something and like inhaling it? Like how does one actually use a blue lotus flower?
So some people do smoke it, you're right. I personally just drink it as a tea. Because I do find that flower essence, to take it this way, for me, I like it. I like the taste of it. It's like drinking chrysanthemum tea as well, right? Okay. So it's pretty nice and soul warming for me. But some people like to smoke it. Some people do use it as a form of incense and all that. I tend not to go there. But yeah, so basically there are properties in essence, and they're just like a medicine to support that to happen. Yeah.
Okay. And so I guess as an individual, if they're watching this right now, what are the steps for them to actually get into this theta gamma? I'm assuming it's brew it, drink it, and then probably meditate on it. Is that the proper way of thinking about it, or is it like, are you trying to sleep on it and then somehow you're able to in your dreams or something you're able to go deeper? Like how does that work?
Okay, so number one, because this is a legal medicine or legal flower tea, right? So let's not get too far ahead that we're going to start hallucinating with this flower, right? We won't do this because this is legal. So really, with this flower, it is a very gentle vibration. It's a very gentle essence. So it's medicine or whatever chemical that's in there to support us in this journey is very subtle. Some people may be more sensitive to it, but if not, it's a very gentle energy. So when we are brewing it, never use boiling water because it's got the essence and we don't want to kill the essence. And from a spiritual perspective, we do talk to the flower spirit and allow the flower spirit to come forward to serve, right? And all this, I learned this from the shaman, and it's a shaman that you're familiar with, called Roberto.
Yep.
And he definitely talked a lot more about the Blue Lotus as well. In fact, he was the one who introduced it to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this, for the shaman, they actually have to go through dhyata to be able to embrace the flower a lot more, the essence of the flower a lot more, right? So number one, this flower is very subtle, it's very gentle. It serves the purpose that it needs to, but we have to treat it with a lot of respect. Just like any plant medicine, it is not for entertainment, it's not for fun. And it is a journey to work with this essence. So when I brew it, I use a maximum of 60 degrees, maybe up to 70 degrees Celsius of water, not boiling, and allow it to steep. Right, and I steep it for around 10-15 minutes, and then I will drink it. But when I drink it, it will need to be in a meditative state.
Okay.
In a meditative state where you allow your body to welcome this essence to support you in tapping into your inner wisdom.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. And I think you are also planning to do a session with people around this whole Blue Lotus flower and help them work with their third eye, right? Can you tell us a bit more about that? Like, how does that, what's the process there?
So, it's quite interesting. Every time I decide to hold my circle, which is the healing circle, my guides would tell me a date. And this time I didn't even realize that the date I'm holding it on is actually the Mooncake Festival.
Huh.
The Mooncake Festival is full moon. So naturally, on that day when the circle comes together, we're going to be gathering under the full moon, and we all know that the full moon has its energy to energize such gentle flower as well. So on that day itself, which is the 21st of September, the circle is going to gather, and then we're going to really be in a meditative state of consuming this essence together. But of course, I'll be energizing and awakening the essence and the flower essence and the flower spirit through my light language, awakening it, and then allowing that energy to serve us in our meditation. I'll be also using the violet ray meditation as well. So the violet ray meditation, if you have seen my logo, that itself is a very powerful logo if you see it in a 3D format. And that's where the meditation will include working with a logo at the 3D format so that people get into the state and go into the violet rays Phantomania, or the platform where violet ray works from.
Okay, I think we covered a lot of really great stuff today. Is there anything else you would like to mention at this very moment to our listeners or viewers?
No, I'm just really glad that you brought up so many interesting topics today about energy, about third eye, and about the blue lotus flower. I do think that people get benefit and understand that where their own journey, their spiritual journey, where they are at, and I hope to be able to support them continuously in this beautiful spiritual growth.
Okay, thanks so much, Teresa, for your time today, and we will see you next time.